Greetings, friends. This is Michael Swain, Executive Director of Freedom of Religion South Africa, and I'm joined by my wonderful and learned colleague, Mrs. Liesl Pretorius, who is our Head of Legal. And this morning, what we're going to do is we're going to give you an update on what is the situation regarding the legislative framework of what's coming up. What is on the screen? What are we looking forward to? What do we need to think about? What do we need to tackle? And to give you an update of where things are at, but obviously we now have a new parliament. The ministers have been appointed, the committees have been appointed. Parliament is actually about to go into recess even as we speak. And when they come back, no doubt we're going to have a new legislative framework, and we're going to have a lot of things ahead of us. But in the meantime, let's just do a catch up on where we are, because we have had, of course, some things that were in the last parliament have been revived, as they say, and now brought forward, and they're back on the table. So, Liesl, maybe just give us a quick overview, because the one thing that we know is back on the screen is, of course, the marriage bill. So maybe let's just start there, and then let's run through some of the other things.
Yes, so Michael, the marriage bill was introduced in the previous parliament. It's before the National Assembly's Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. And the previous committee has already invited public comment on the bill. 4SA has submitted our written submission on the bill. And now, so at the end of the last parliament, the bill lapsed and it was revived, as is done with all bills that lapse before parliament. So what the next steps are is that the Portfolio Committee needs to resume considering this bill. It's not on the committee schedule yet. So they will probably invite a briefing by the Department of Home Affairs. The new committee members will probably have to, not probably, they will definitely have to look at the submissions that were received and then process the bill. Overall, it's a very good bill. This bill is a culmination of the process that started with the green paper on marriage, the white paper on marriage, and I must say the Department of Home Affairs did a really excellent job at broad and meaningful consultation. And then a draft bill was produced by the department, and that version did not have express protection of religious marriage officers, something that we have in our current marriage legislation. And when this bill was finally introduced in Parliament, that express protection is in that bill. So we are very glad to see that. We commented on that, and we commended that inclusion in our submissions. The bill does wonderful things. It recognizes almost all religious marriages, subject to a few very minimal and very sensible criteria to ensure that there's consent from the parties, etc. One concern is that the current bill does not have express protection of ex officio, so state-employed marriage officers, and it does not separate the solemnization aspect of marriages from the administrative aspect of marriages. And we think that's something that can be improved if we are able to protect the conscientious rights of all marriage officers, including those protected by the state. Like I said, religious marriage officers are protected, also marriage officers from other groupings, secular groupings, cultural groupings. But if we can protect the civil marriage officers, that would be fantastic. An easy way to do that is to separate the solemnization aspect from the administrative aspect, so that when you register a marriage, it's like when you're registering a death or a birth. And it obviously has to be done in a way that all South Africans and all people, no matter what their persuasion or what type of marriage they want to enter into, when they go to the state, they have an equal level of service delivery. So it's important to ensure that all constitutional rights are protected. But that's overall the marriage bill. So we're just waiting for the bill to come up on the committee schedule.
Yes, I think it's worthwhile just saying that we, 4SA, our particular interest in this has been to protect the conscientious and religious freedom rights of those involved in actually solemnizing or registering marriages, not fighting for, like, what does marriage mean, what is the definition of marriage, and that type of thing. So we do understand that other people have got different, let's say, elements or concerns about this, but we are very much focused on the religious freedom rights, which actually brings us to the next topic, where we don't really have any major concerns from a religious freedom point of view, but there is obviously a lot of concern from parents, from communities, which is the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill, the so-called BELA bill. So maybe, Liesl, we can just get from you a quick update on the status of that.
Yeah, so Michael, that bill was passed by Parliament, the previous Parliament, on the 16th of May and has been sent to the President for assent. As of today, it has not been signed. So it's still a bill, it's not law. And there are various concerns. The religious freedom concern that we had related to the leasing of school property, for example, a school hall or another facility, and that had to be signed off by the MEC, so that power would be taken away to some extent from the school governing body, and that would have put religious organizations on a back foot, perhaps, but that has been removed. But as you say, it's not a freedom. There aren't any specific freedom of religion concerns in the current version of the BELA bill, but there are concerns that other stakeholders may have. There are concerns around the power of school governing bodies when it comes to matters that are not related to religious freedom, some other matters. So parents might still be concerned about this bill, and there are stakeholders, so it is something to follow, but not from a religious freedom point of view. At the moment, what we're basically doing is just waiting to see when the bill gets signed into law, or if the new government, we have a new Minister of Basic Education, we have a new government, whether they might reconsider this bill, because there was a lot of concern about this, valid concerns, not freedom of religion concerns, but other valid concerns, and we do recognize that.
Yeah, there was a significant public participation in the lead up, which a lot of people, I think, were concerned hadn't been given meaningful consideration. But I think one of the things that, again, we have to look at when it comes to the BELA bill, perhaps just as an overarching trend, is that the education system, which was obviously post 1994 very different from that under the apartheid era, gave significant authority and power to school governing bodies, particularly in recognition of the fact that the state has a role in education, but very much so do parents, represented by their school governing bodies. And so when you start to see a bit of a clawback, so to speak, from the power of school governing bodies by the state, that obviously is a concerning trend, generally speaking. Speaking of another concerning trend, we also have now the Prevention and Combating of Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Act. It was actually signed into law by the president in the immediate period right before the elections. And just give us quick headlines on that, and perhaps also just let's outline some of the next steps that might be taken to, let's say, ameliorate or undo the worst effects of this now law in its current form.
Yes, so it's now an act of parliament, so it's law, was signed on the 6th of May by the president, but it's not yet operable. And I have not seen any notice that it has come into operation, perhaps because it is so controversial. It's controversial from a freedom of expression point of view, a freedom of religious expression point of view, and from a general democratic rights point of view.
So Lisa, just give us a sense of when you say it's not yet in operation, it's not yet operable. What does that mean exactly, and what would it take for that to happen?
Well, Michael, it just means it's not yet operable. It's like it's on the law book, but it can't be. It's not enforced yet, so it can't be enforced yet. And for it to come into operation, the president simply has to there has to be a proclamation and in the government gazette, and then it becomes operable. But we have a period of time, but it's in law currently. So even though it's not operable, once it becomes operable, if you contravene the law, you can be held accountable for anything that you've done since it's come into law. But it's not yet operable as of this date. So somebody can't bring a charge against you or arrest you under the act today. That's simply what it means.
Right. And so what would be, I mean, because we were obviously deeply concerned about it because of the vague definitions that were there, because of the fact that so many things, which quite frankly could be seen as very legitimate religious freedom expression and other expressions for that matter, could be caught in the net. And as we know, the law now says that if you are found guilty, you can potentially face a jail sentence of up to 5 years. So what are the next steps that can take place? Because one of the things that we obviously thought about this and pushed very hard against this is the fact that the bill in and of itself has certainly elements that are deeply unconstitutional.
Yes, there are grave constitutional concerns. So, since it is now an act of parliament, and some time has passed since it has become an act of parliament, um, one thing that could be done is for the executive to recognize these concerns and to bring an amendment bill to, because it's an act, you can't just, because it's already an act, if you want to amend an act, you need an amendment bill. So basically bring a new bill that addresses these concerns, and then let this bill progress through Parliament, and then when that amendment bill comes into force, it amends the act, and then you have a new act that is hopefully, or an amended act at least, that hopefully is constitutionally compliant. The other route is litigation, but litigation is very costly and one wouldn't want to go that route. But if it's necessary, one has to go that route. But litigation will stand over until such time that the well, it depends. If you want to bring a litigation in the sense of an in principle case, you can bring it now. The act doesn't have to be operable in order to litigate on the constitutionality of the act. Or what could happen is somebody once the act becomes operable, somebody is charged with hate speech, and it's a kind of a frivolous or a vexatious case, and then that case becomes the basis to test the constitutionality. But it's one of those three routes.
Right. So, in other words, there is obviously quite a route ahead to actually prevent this or to ameliorate perhaps the worst effects and impacts of it. So let's also look back at the spy bill, the General Intelligence Laws Amendment Bill. This has obviously also been passed by Parliament and has been sent to the President. Where are we at with that, and what concerns, if any, do we still have within that? Because initially, of course, there were deep concerns. Again, it was one of those things which gave pretty much untraveled rights to state agencies to pry into just about anything and everything that they wanted to about you, with potentially pretty dire sanctions if you fell short of the standards that you would have been required to show to get a security clearance certificate. But give us an update on that, because for us, obviously, we were very involved in the pushback against that.
Yes, so that bill was also passed by Parliament, I also believe around the 16th. Yes, on the 16th of May. It has not been signed by the President, so it's not yet law. It's a real victory, this one. It was a horror show of a bill, the initial version, but there was such a wide public participation, and the ad hoc committee that considered the bill really took the public comments very seriously. And the version that was passed, the amended version that was passed, has addressed most, if not all, but all significant freedom of religion concerns. So that really is a victory. It's a testimony to why public participation is important and why it is powerful. There might be some other concerns. I know persons from the journalism sector have concerns, but no freedom of religious concerns. So now we're just waiting for the President to sign this bill into law.
Yeah, that was definitely a good news story at the end of the last parliamentary term. So another thing which has reared its head, I nearly said ugly head, but I guess it depends on your viewpoint or how it actually is implemented in the school system, is comprehensive sexuality education in the broad sense, because obviously it's part of the curriculum, the CAPS curriculum, and also, of course, the ongoing issue that we are challenging, which is the early childhood education toolkit, the so-called ECE toolkit, which teaches a teacher training program that effectively will infuse a transgender ideology into pre-primary and primary schools. So maybe you could just give a quick overview of where we are with those two things.
Okay, so first, comprehensive sexuality education. It is being implemented, it is being rolled out across South Africa. It is a radical form of sexuality education, and the values within that type of education, many parents will feel that it is not aligned with the values that they want to teach their own children about sex and relationships, because it's value-laden content, or there are significant components that have value-laden content. It's not neutral, like 1 + 1 = 2. It's not like biology that's very kind of clinical and objective. So that's why it's concerning. Also the age appropriateness, et cetera, and that there wasn't consultation. I think that the important thing that parents need to know about CSE is that it is not compulsory. when it comes to life skills and life orientation, you can use any learning material as long as that learning material that you use meets the outcome of the CAPS curriculum statement for that subject and for the year of that subject, and there are alternatives available. For example, before CSE, schools were using different materials for the sexuality education component of life skills and life orientation. Schools can decide to keep on using that. They can use an alternative value-based program. There are value-based programs out there that they can use. That's why it's important for parents to be involved, because the school governing body can choose what the material is that they use. And of course, if you're a teacher, you're a principal, you can also make that suggestion and to think what is right for your school community. But when you bring something into your school that has ideological content, it's very important to inform your parents, because parents have the inalienable right to choose what kind of education is best for their children. That includes the religious and cultural basis of that education. And the religious and cultural basis, your beliefs, will have an influence often on how you view sex and relationships around that and the values with that. So I think that's important to always inform your parents about what's going on, to make sure the curriculum that you're using is relevant for your school.
Then maybe just jump in and say that we did an interview, a more in-depth interview on this subject. So if people are interested in looking at that, we did an interview called Parental Rights and CSE in Schools. So we're going to put a link to that video as well, that you can watch that afterwards. So yeah, Liesl, maybe just to jump forward onto the ECE, or Early Childhood Education Toolkit, where we are with that. And again, perhaps just an update of what we can potentially do and what we are hoping will be the outcome of the discussions with the Department of Basic Education on this matter.
Yes, surely, Michael. So we've had discussions with the Department of Basic Education up until this stage. There hasn't been any, I would say, constructive resolutions to the concerns of the coalition that we form part of, Coalition of Spiritual and Cultural Leaders. So what we're hoping to do, or to secure, is a meeting with the new Minister of Basic Education. We are trying to again have meetings. We have written to the department, responding to a response that the department has sent to the coalition after the meetings that we held, and we're hoping to take this conversation forward in order to arrive at a situation where parental rights are protected. One of our ideas is perhaps the establishment of a family values unit, and the purpose of such a unit will be to ensure that there is a diversity of views. South Africa is a very diverse country. Our constitution protects the rights and freedoms of all people, and if we really want unity and diversity, if we really want everyone to feel welcome in the classroom, we have to include all stakeholders. Parents are very important because they are their children's primary educators and caretakers. Teachers obviously have to be there because you have freedom of religion in the workplace, and all other representatives of religious and cultural communities. And that's what this unit will be. There are conversations with the department is not aimed at excluding anyone, marginalizing anyone, but it's aimed at ensuring true diversity, aimed at ensuring that parental rights are protected, because when you protect parental rights, that is absolutely crucial for ensuring that the best interests of children are protected, and also for ensuring true diversity. And because there wasn't a consultation, there wasn't broad consultation in the development or rollout of this toolkit. So we are hoping that we will secure a resolution to this problem that ticks those boxes, so that we can have true inclusion, true diversity, true broad consultation, and through that protecting parental rights and ultimately the best interests of children. And as we have noted before in previous interviews, parental rights, because parents have this right that is recognized in international law and also in our white paper, that you have the right to raise your own children according to your own religious beliefs and moral values, and we want to see that protected.
Now, that's fantastic. And we do, again, have another video on parental rights specifically, which you can view on this channel. And I think that's pretty much a wrap. We, 4SA, are very, very busy at the moment because, of course, we have a new cast of characters. We have new ministers, deputy ministers. We have new committee members. That's where a lot of the law is actually made. And so we are obviously introducing ourselves, and we are making sure, as really the watchmen on the walls, and looking after our constitutional right that is recognized in the Constitution, not granted by it, recognized by it, to faith and freedom. So keep tuning in to 4SA. you can go to our website channel, or our 4SA website. We've got a YouTube channel, of course, and we also have a Facebook page. And we really want to encourage you, please support 4SA, support our work. We are only able to do what we do because people give voluntary donations to us. So there's going to be a donations link at the end of this. We want to encourage you to click that, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and let's stand together in the fight for faith and freedom.